Today we're going to look at being an expert in your field and how that can make a big impact on how Google rates your website and your business. Now, of course, being an expert is part of the EAT SEO acronym. EAT standing for expertise, authority, and trustworthiness. So let's just consider for a moment, as the three are very similar, but what things can you do to show to Google that you're an expert? What can you do to show to Google that as an expert, you deserve to be ranked higher than the other experts around you? Well, let's see how we can do this. The first question to ask really is, why is being an expert so important in SEO terms? Well, to illustrate it, imagine you're on Who Wants to Be a Millionaire?
The £1 million question.
It's the last question, and the question's all about kings and queens of England. And you've got no idea, but you've also got a phone a friend. So who do you think of? Well, you think of an expert on history in this case, and you can confidently phone your expert and ask him the question. But of course, if he says he's an expert on history and then can't back that up with any substance, well then what use was that person saying he's an expert? And of course, we can be an expert in one field and not in another. So I might be an expert on Google My Business, but I know nothing at all about the history of kings and queens. So don't phone me as a phone a friend if that's the case for kings and queens of England. The point is saying we're an expert is one thing, but backing it up with substance is what we're looking for. And that's what Google is looking for. And the challenge Google has is there's no algorithm that can do that. The only way that can be done is by humans looking at the content that you're producing and then deciding whether or not you sound or look or give enough evidence of being an expert in your field. But there are things that you can do to show Google, and particularly to show those Google representatives, that you're an expert if that's the case. So there are human quality raters by Google that they assess the results that Google's producing by means of the algorithm, and then they'll then manually do tweaks and they'll feed back to Google whether or not the tweaks that have been made are actually showing the experts at the top of the search engine results. So even though you can't actually manipulate the results with Google, by being an expert and showing you're an expert, that in itself will give Google evidence that they need to put you to the top. And another thing you can do as well is you can check to see what authority you've been given by Google when it comes to your website and your domain authority.
And so how do you know you're an expert in your field? Well, again, this is often down to votes or backlinks. So if you go to Semrush, again, I'll put a free trial down below in the comments below. And there you can then see that if you go to backlinks, 3.7k, 485 referring domains. So these are like votes that are saying, yes, we vote that this is an authority in its area. And so that's an important part. You can click on this as well, actually, and it'll give you then all of those that have voted for you in effect, which is then a list of how they've agreed it, what they've said, and so on. So that's, again, something you can build on from Semrush.
It's worth saying, though, that being an expert isn't necessarily needed in all fields, all categories, all businesses. So think about your business. Is being an expert, say, window cleaner, as important being an expert doctor, or being an expert surgeon, or being an expert solicitor? So you can see certain types of businesses require different levels of expertise, and that will affect your customers one way or another, depending on how much of an expert they need. So what's actually needed to be an expert, and how can you show Google's visitors that you're an expert in your field? Well, it's all really about the content on your website, but also we're going to see a few things you can do with the Google My Business as well. So first of all, just think about the content. Does it show that you're an expert in your field? Does it show you know what you're talking about? Does it show that you're an expert by means of experience and knowledge? Have you shown off what skills you have? When you think about on Google My Business, you could look at the categories you've chosen. These in themselves will show the types of skills you've got. There are also services you can offer in Google My Business too. So you want to select the right ones that are going to appeal to your customers, that show you're an expert. Of course, qualifications is another thing that you may put on your website, or you might put that information down in your description in Google My Business. Your education, even the time that your business has been established, that's had a real impact recently. where now Google's even showing, as you can see here, Google shows even by means of its results about Google My Business on the maps or knowledge panels, how long you've been an expert in your field. So being an expert, having a long period of good records with customers, these things have an impact on the results and SEO. And of course, being an expert, you can be referred to as an expert from other sites too. So if someone's referring to you or your article, they're in effect saying this person's an expert, especially if they're using your name or your bio to say that this is being done by so-and-so. So no one likes to brag, but having a description of your certificates, your qualifications, having that type of information is important on LinkedIn, and it's important to Google too, to be on your website. And maybe if there's areas to put it on Google My Business, then why not take advantage of that too? And of course, your about pages, your team pages, your bio are ways in which you can show those qualifications. So now you're seen as an expert in your field. Can you also be considered an authority and trustworthy? Because those are the other words that make up the EAT. Well, let's look now at this video, how you can be authoritative, and this one, how you can be trustworthy.